Chapter 1. A Calamity from the Sky. My name is Leo Miller. I'm 28 years old, working as a product manager at a tech startup in Denver. I make about $95,000 a year. My mortgage is $4,000 a month. I'm single, and I own an orange tabby cat named Winston. Life was a flat line of routine, right up until the night of the storm. It was Friday, March 13th, 2026. The irony wasn't lost on me. Instead of just having a run-of-the-mill, unlucky day, my bad luck took the form of a woman falling from the sky and crashing through my balcony. I was in the living room, eating a cup of ramen and scrolling through my phone when I heard a deafening crash from the balcony, followed by the sickening sound of shattering glass. I bolted over, ramen cup still in hand, and saw a woman in a white dress lying in the wreckage of my succulent collection. Her long hair was splayed out, the fabric of her dress seemed to float around her, and her body was surrounded by a faint golden glow. My first thought was to call 911. My second thought was that she was beautiful. My third thought was, my succulents. I've been growing that Haworthia for 3 years. 911? Yeah, someone fell onto my balcony. What? No, she didn't jump from another floor. She fell out of the sky. Yes, to the sky. After hanging up, I knelt down to check her injuries. Strangely, she didn't have a single scratch on her. Her skin was flawless, almost translucent, without a speck of dust. Her breathing was even, as if she were just asleep. Just as I was about to attempt CPR, her eyes snapped open. And what eyes they were! Her irises were a pale gold, shimmering as if they held a galaxy of stars. When she looked at me, I felt a tremor run through my very soul. "Mortal," she said, her voice as crisp and cool as a mountain spring. "I am Alara, a celestial of the Azure Palace. I have come to collect on a debt from your past life." I stared for 3 seconds, then I let out a nervous laugh. "Wow, lady, that's some professional-grade cosplay. Which Comic-Con did you just come from? How do you even do that lighting effect?" Alara slowly sat up, her gaze sweeping over my modest apartment, a slight frown creasing her brow. 327 years, and your taste is still just as abysmal." "Hold on," I said, holding up my hands. 327 years? I'm only 28. "Your past life?" she clarified, rising to her feet. The white dress billowed around her without a breeze, and the golden light gradually faded. "You were once known as Liam Blackwood, son of the commanding general of the ancient kingdom of Silverwood. In the 12th year of the Starfall era, you borrowed 100,000 silver crowns from me, promising repayment in 3 years with 3% interest compounded. In the 15th year, you were killed in battle, the debt unpaid. I took pity, knowing you died for your kingdom, and did not pursue the matter. But you have been reborn 3 times since. The bill is now due." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She lifted a slender finger and drew a shape in the air. An image materialized before me. In an ancient, elegant courtyard, a young nobleman in rich robes was raising a cup to a woman in white. They were talking and laughing. The nobleman then accepted a heavy pouch of coins and pressed his thumbprint onto a scroll. The young man's face was, admittedly, a 90% match for my own. "Is this some kind of deep fake?" I asked weakly. Alara's gaze was piercing. "I do not lie. According to celestial law, though a reincarnated soul does not recall its past, its karmic debts must be paid. Your past self borrowed 100,000 silver crowns. With 3% interest compounded over 327 years, the principal and interest now total," she paused, her fingers moving in a complex calculation, "approximately $17.5 billion, based on current silver prices." My knees gave out. I crumpled to the floor. "Or," she said, leaning down, a flicker of amusement in her golden eyes, "you can repay me in another way." "What way?" "Serve as my guide and attendant for 1 year in the mortal realm. Allow me to experience your world. At the end of the year, 90% of your debt will be forgiven. That's still $1.75 billion. We can discuss that in a year." I swallowed hard. 17.5 billion down to 1.75 billion. It still sounded insane, but at least I get to live for another year. "Deal," I said, extending a hand. Alara looked at my hand, hesitated for a moment, then lightly took it. Her fingers were cool, but surprisingly soft. "The pact is sealed. To break it is to have your soul scattered to the winds. The moment she finished speaking, a flash of gold erupted from our clasped hands, splitting into two streams of light. One shot in her forehead, the other into my chest. I yelped and tore open my shirt. A golden lotus insignia was glowing on my chest before slowly fading into my skin. "What is this?" "The mark of our pact," Alara said coolly. "From now on, in life you belong to me, and in death, you are my ghost." I just stared. That sounded weirdly possessive. Chapter 2. The cohabitation. The paramedics and the cops came and went. I spent a solid hour trying to explain that this isn't a criminal case. My friend is just a performance artist shooting a TikTok video. Unsurprisingly, nobody believed me. In the end, I slipped the building manager $300 to get the balcony fixed, and the whole mess was finally over. At 3 in the morning, Alara and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, staring at each other. "So, your celestial majesty, what's your plan now?" I asked cautiously. "I will reside here." "Here?" I glanced around my 600-square-foot, one-bedroom apartment. "I'm not sure this place is up to your, standards." "I will endure it," she said, standing and walking toward the bedroom. "I'm requisitioning this room. You will sleep on the couch." "Wait." I jumped up. "That's my bed." Alara turned, her gaze sweeping over me. "Do you have an objection?" The sheer authority in her eyes made me instantly deflate. "No, none at all. Be my guest." I gathered my blanket and pillow and set up my new sleeping arrangement on the couch. Winston padded over, sniffing curiously in the direction of the bedroom. "Winston, buddy," I sighed, stroking his fur. "I think a demon lord just moved in." Meow. In the middle of the night, I was woken by a strange, fragrant scent. I opened my eyes and saw Alara standing on a repaired balcony. The moonlight draped over her, giving her a silver halo. She was holding a luminous lotus flower that seemed to be absorbing the moonlight. "Is she training?" I quietly pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. This was priceless footage of a real-life, celestial being. "If I posted this online, what are you doing?" Alara's voice cut through the silence, though she didn't turn around. My hand jerked, nearly dropping the phone. "In nothing. Just scrolling through TikTok." "That glowing rectangle." She turned, looking at my phone with curiosity. "A mortal artifact?" "It's called a smartphone, not an artifact," I said, relieved. "Have you never seen one?" Alara stepped closer, peering at the screen. She had a clean, crisp scent, like a pine forest after snowfall. It was incredibly calming. "Show me." I opened a video of a food blogger eating at a Sichuan Hotpot restaurant. Alara stared at the screen, her brow furrowed. "What is being boiled in that cauldron? Why is it so vividly colored?" "That's Hotpot. You've never had it." "I do not consume the food of mortals." "Then what do you usually eat?" "Celestial nectar, spirit fruits, and divine elixirs." I swallowed. "Is it good?" Alara was silent for a moment. "It is without taste. Tasteless. It is consumed only to sustain one's celestial form. There is no flavor to speak of." Her eyes were still glued to my phone, where the blogger was now dipping a thin slice of beef. "Is that good?" Seeing the flicker of curiosity in her eyes, I realized something. This high and mighty, celestial being was completely clueless about the human world. "I'll take you to try it tomorrow," I said. "My treat." Alara looked away, her cool demeanor returning. "There is no need. I was merely asking." But as she turned to go back to the bedroom, I saw her pause for a split second and glance back at my phone. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a commotion in the kitchen. I burst in to find Alara standing in front of the stove, holding my non-stick pan, from which thick black smoke was billowing. She was trying to control the flame with some kind of magic, but it was clear that a gas stovetop and celestial fire were two very different things. "What are you doing?" I lunged forward, shutting off the gas and flipping on the exhaust fan. "I was attempting to recreate that hot pot from last night," Alara said, her face a mask of indifference, though the tips of her ears were slightly red. I looked at the charred remains in the pan, then at her white dress, now smudged with soot, and I couldn't help but smile. "So, is this your first time cooking since you came down to Earth?" "Insolence," she snapped, but there was no real heat in her eyes. "I am merely unaccustomed to your mortal instruments." All right, I said, raising my hands in surrender. "I'll show you how it's done. But first, you have to change. You can't go out in that dress." Alara looked down at her clothes, frowning. She lifted a hand, and a soft light washed over her. In an instant, the white dress was pristine again, completely free of dirt and smudges. A simple cleansing spell, she said dismissively. Hardly world-shattering. My jaw dropped. Can you teach me that? No, why not? Mortals cannot command celestial energy, she said, walking out of the kitchen. You prepare the hot pot. I will observe. I shook my head and started cleaning up her mess. Winston was crouched by the kitchen door, staring warily at Alara, his tail puffed up like a bottle brush. Easy, Winston, I whispered. She's our creditor. We can't afford to offend her. Alara seemed to hear me. She glanced back at Winston, and the orange tabby immediately deflated, tucking his tail and scurrying under the sofa. Your pet has some spiritual awareness, she remarked. Please don't scare him, I said with a weary smile. He's a bit of a coward. I did not scare him, Alara said, sitting on the couch. He merely sensed my aura. It is instinct for common creatures to fear the divine. As I prepared the ingredients for the hot pot, I watched her out of the corner of my eye. She was curiously examining every object in my living room. The TV, the Wi-Fi router, the air purifier, even Winston's cartoonish cat bed. Her eyes were like those of a child seeing a city for the first time, but her expression remained stoic and aloof. Your Majesty, can I ask you a question? Speak. Why did you really come to the mortal world? A few $1 billion can't be that much to you, right? Does the celestial realm not have inflation? Alara was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't answer. I was in seclusion for over 300 years, she finally said, her voice softer now. When I emerged, the Azure Palace was the same, but everyone I knew was gone. My hand stilled. The path of a celestial is long and lonely, she continued, her gaze fixed on the skyscrapers outside my window. I wanted to see what the mortal realm had become after all this time. Suddenly it clicked. This wasn't about collecting a debt. This was a vacation, or maybe this celestial being was just lonely. So why me? Just because of some debt from a past life? Alara turned to look at me, a complex emotion flickering in her golden eyes. The wheel of karma turns, and our connection was not yet severed. It was destiny. I wanted to ask more, but the hot pot broth started to boil, sending a fragrant, spicy steam into the air. Here, try this, I said, picking up a slice of beef with my chopsticks. Just swish it around for about 10 seconds. Alara hesitantly took the chopsticks. It had taken me 3 minutes to teach her the proper grip. She mimicked my movement, dipping the beef into the bubbling red broth before putting it in her mouth. The next second, I saw the eternally composed celestial of the Azure Palace's eyes go wide. How is it? She chewed slowly, then picked up another slice and dipped it again. It is adequate, she said, but her chopsticks never stopped moving. I smiled. This celestial being was clearly loving it, but was too proud to admit it. That night, Alara ate 3 pounds of thinly sliced beef, 2 orders of duck blood, and 4 servings of shrimp paste. She was about to drink the leftover broth when I stopped her. I made her a bowl of white rice instead. She ate 4 bowls. Mortal food possesses such flavor, she said, leaning back in her chair, a rare look of satisfaction on her face. What have I been eating all my life? Celestial nectar, I laughed. Just, tasteless. Alara fell silent. She looked at the messy table and suddenly said, Tomorrow, I wish to try that. She was pointing a flyer on my fridge, an ad for bubble tea. No problem, I said. But first, we need to set some ground rules. Speak. First, no using celestial powers in front of mortals. Second, you have to wear normal clothes when we go out, not the white robes. And third, I thought for a moment. Third, you need to learn how to make money. You can't just eat for free. Alara raised an eyebrow. I do not possess your currency. Exactly. So you have to listen to me, I said, feeling a surge of courage. If you want to experience mortal life, you have to play by mortal rules. I'm your guide, right? She stared at me for a long time, so long that the back of my neck started to prickle. Agreed. That afternoon, I took Alara to the mall to buy clothes. Her white dress, while self-cleaning, was way too conspicuous on the street. She looked like a walking fantasy movie character. How about this? I held up a beige trench coat. Alara frowned. Too bulky. This one, I offered a black hoodie, devoid of all aesthetic appeal. Then why don't you pick something? She walked through a few stores before stopping in front of a small boutique, pointing at a simple, white linen dress in the window. That one. I glanced at the price tag. $68. Reasonable. Are you sure? There are much more expensive stores next door. This one, she said. The fabric is similar to what I am used to. It dawned on me. She didn't want expensive, she wanted comfortable. After 300 years of being swathed in celestial energy, her skin was probably too sensitive for synthetic fabrics. Dressed in normal clothes, Alara looked less like a deity and more like a strikingly beautiful woman with an incredibly cool demeanor. As we walked through the mall, she turned heads everywhere we went. So, what's next on the food tour? Hotpot, she said without hesitation. Didn't we just? I wish to attempt it again, she said. This time, I will do the cooking myself. At that meal, Alara ate 4 pounds of beef, 3 orders of tripe, and 5 servings of lamb. Her chopstick skills were clumsy at first, but her ability to learn was astonishing. By the end of the meal, she was an expert. The days that followed felt like a dream. I took Alara on a culinary tour of Denver. American barbecue, sushi, Sichuan food, Vietnamese pho, hot pot, food truck tacos, crawfish boils. This celestial being had a terrifyingly large appetite and an even more terrifying ability to learn. On the 3rd day, she mastered chopsticks. On the 5th day, she learned how to use Apple Pay. By the 7th day, she had started critiquing the restaurants. The broth in this hot pot lacks depth. The ratio of beef tallow is imbalanced. The sashimi at this establishment is fresh, but the knife work is crude. This barbecue brisket, she paused, is excellent. Another ½ pound, please. I watched in stunned silence as she devoured everything. This celestial being had been on Earth for a week and had already become a professional food critic. But her learning capacity went beyond food. I taught her how to use a smartphone, and within 3 days, she was a pro, scrolling TikTok, watching live streams, and even posting comments. I caught her secretly watching culinary documentaries late at night, taking notes. Your Majesty, are you researching mortal culinary arts? She said, closing her phone without a change in expression. For future reference. I held back a laugh and nodded. Right. Research. Besides eating, Alara was curious about everything. She rode the light rail, marveling at the iron serpents that carry hundreds of people. She wandered through a supermarket, astounded by the endless variety of products. We even went to a karaoke bar once. After I taught her the lyrics to a classic Disney song, she fell silent for a long time. The lyrics, she said, they are fitting. What do you mean? A magical being and immortal, she said, looking at me with a complex expression. Do you know how that story ends? Ariel and Eric? Didn't they get married and live happily ever after? In the sanitized version, she said softly. In the original tale, she fails and dissolves into sea foam. The laws of the cosmos are strict. Celestials and mortals are worlds apart. I didn't quite understand what she was getting at, but she seemed quieter after that day. Chapter 3. Trouble comes knocking. 2 weeks of peaceful gluttony passed, and then trouble arrived. I came home from work one evening to find 2 men in black suits standing outside my apartment door. They were built like linebackers and had the blank expressions of professional bodyguards. Mr. Miller? That's me. Who are you? Our employer would like to have a word with you, one of them said. It's about the amulet you sold recently. My stomach dropped. What amulet? I don't know what you're talking about. 3 days ago, you sold a jade amulet at a downtown antique market. The other man cut in. A self-warming charm that dispels illness. Our employer bought it. He wore it for 3 days, and the arthritis he's had for years vanished. His insomnia is gone too. He wants to know where you got it. A cold sweat trickled down my back. That was the trinket Alara had given me, something she called an insignificant little bauble. I'd sold it to buy her more clothes, not realizing it was a miraculous healing artifact. It's a family heirloom, I said, trying to sound calm. That was the only one. He doesn't believe that, the man said. Please, Mr. Miller, come with us. They moved to flank me, clearly not taking no for an answer. Just then, the door opened. Alara stood there, wearing the white linen dress I'd bought her, her long hair down. She looked like any other young professional in the city, if you ignored the pale golden shimmer in her eyes. My amulet, she said, her voice like ice. What questions do you have about it? The two men froze, clearly not expecting anyone else to be home, let alone a woman of such otherworldly beauty. Miss, leave, Ilara said flatly, or you will regret it. The men exchanged a look and then moved at the same time. They were fast, obviously trained professionals. I cried out, but in the next instant, they were flying backward, literally flying as if swatted by an invisible giant, before slamming into the opposite wall and slumping to the ground unconscious. Ilara lowered her hand as if she'd just shooed away a couple of flies. Ilara, I hissed. I thought we agreed. No celestial powers. They were a threat to me, she said with a frown. This was a minor disciplinary action. So what do we do now? Call the cops. Unnecessary. She knelt down and tapped each man on the forehead. When they awaken, they will have no memory of today. I let out a breath of relief, but my heart was still pounding. That amulet was too powerful. This wasn't going to be the end of it. And I was right. The next day, bigger trouble arrived. I was in a meeting at work when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ilara. She'd learned to use iMessage, and while her typing was slow, she could get her point across. Visitors. They claimed to be from the DUA. They are asking for you. Dua? I'd never heard of it. Tell them to wait. I'll be home after work. They refused to leave. My patience is wearing thin. Don't do anything. Whatever you do, don't do anything. I'm on my way. I made up an excuse and left work early, racing home. I burst through the door to find two people in plain clothes sitting on my couch. Ilara sat opposite them, her expression thunderous. Mr. Miller, one of them a young man, stood up and showed me a badge. Department of Unconventional Affairs. Agent Carter. This is my partner, Agent Shaw. I looked at the ID. It seemed real enough. But there was something about them. They had the bearing of soldiers or federal agents, but with a sharper, more dangerous edge. What does the DUA do? I asked. We handle supernatural occurrences, Carter said bluntly. Things like celestial magic, demonic entities, paranormal phenomena. My heart skipped a beat. We've noticed a few special items popping up on the market recently, Carter continued. Like the amulet you sold. Our analysis shows it contains a form of energy that doesn't conform to any known scientific principles. And so we'd like to ask, Carter said, turning his gaze to Ilara. Where exactly did you come from, miss? Ilara met his stare. Are you certain you want to know? Carter held her gaze, but beads of sweat began to form on his forehead. He could clearly feel some kind of pressure, but he held his ground. It's my job. I am Ilara, she said, a celestial of the Azure Palace, visiting the mortal realm. The room was silent for 5 seconds. Then Carter chuckled. A celestial? Are you serious? Ilara didn't answer. She simply raised her hand. The glass of water on the coffee table floated into the air, spun around, and the water inside formed a miniature dragon that swam around the room before pouring itself perfectly back into the glass. Not a single drop spilled. Carter's smile froze on his face. Is that sufficient? Ilara asked. Carter took a deep breath and exchanged a look with Shaw, who had been silent the whole time. Her hand was resting near her hip, where a bulge under her jacket suggested a weapon. Celestial Ilara, Carter said, his tone now one of deep respect. There's been no official contact between our worlds for over 3 centuries. Do you have authorization for this visit? My actions do not require mortal approval. But you've already disrupted the mortal order, Carter pressed. That amulet has attracted attention at the highest levels. If more items like it enter circulation, there won't be any more. I cut in. That was the only one. We promise. Carter looked at me, his expression unreadable. Mr. Miller, what is your relationship to the Celestial? I struggled for a word. He is my debtor, Ilara said, and my guide in the mortal realm. Carter nodded slowly, as if piecing something together. I see. The gateways between worlds were sealed 3 centuries ago. How did you? I have my own methods, Ilara interrupted. Carter closed his notebook and stood. In that case, we will need to register your presence. Celestial Ilara, how long do you plan to stay in the mortal realm? 1 year. 1 year, Carter jotted it down. During that time, please adhere to the Mortal Celestial Non-Interference Treaty. No large-scale use of magic, no disruption of social order, and no, I'm aware of the celestial laws. Ilara cut him off. I do not need a mortal to recite them to me. As Carter and Shaw reached the door, Carter turned back to me. By the way, the man who bought your amulet was Mr. Sterling of the Sterling family in D.C. Now that his health has improved, he's expressed a desire to meet the seller and thank him personally. The Sterlings are a very powerful family. You should be careful. He gave Alara one last, respectful nod. Celestial, we'll be in touch. After the door closed, I collapsed onto the couch. Alara, don't you think you were a little too conspicuous? I've already suppressed 90% of my power, she said coolly. And what if you didn't? This building, no, this entire city, would be a crater of ash. I swallowed hard and decided it was best not to ask any more questions. Chapter 4. The D.C. affair. The invitation from the Sterling family came sooner than I expected. 3 days later, a black Maybach was parked outside my apartment building. A chauffeur respectfully handed me an engraved invitation. Mr. Sterling's 80th birthday gala, with a special request for the presence of the miracle healer Leo Miller and his companion. Miracle healer? I said with a pained laugh. I just sold him an amulet. Mr. Sterling is convinced you're a master of some hidden art, the chauffeur said. He insists you honor him with your presence. I looked at Alara. She was scrolling through TikTok, not even looking up. We will go. I am curious to see what mortal nobility looks like these days. But your eyes. She glanced up, and the gold in her irises faded to a normal, dark brown, a new disguise spell she'd recently mastered. Is this acceptable? I nodded. I had to admit, with brown eyes, Alara lost some of her divine aura but gained an earthly charm. She was still breathtakingly beautiful. The gala was held at one of the most exclusive private clubs in Washington, D.C. When Alara and I arrived, we realized this was no ordinary birthday party. The guests were a who's who of politics and finance. Every other person was someone you'd see on the national news. Mr. Miller, a vibrant old man, came to greet us. It was Mr. Sterling himself. He grabbed my hand, his enthusiasm overwhelming. Thank you for your divine medicine. You saved my life. Not all, sir, I stammered, trying to pull my hand away. It was just a family heirloom. It was just a coincidence that it worked for you. A coincidence? Mr. Sterling roared with laughter. I've spent 20 years searching for a cure. I've tried every snake oil remedy under the sun. Only your amulet worked instantly. He led us to a table of honor, his eyes frequently drifting to Alara. And this young lady is a friend of mine, Alara. Miss Alara has an extraordinary presence, Mr. Sterling said admiringly. From which prominent family do you hail? Alara replied coolly. I belong to no house. I am merely a wanderer. Mr. Sterling paused, then beamed. A wanderer? I love it. Please, allow me to toast you both. After a few rounds of drinks, Mr. Sterling finally got to the point. Mr. Miller, I have an enormous favor to ask. Please go ahead. My granddaughter has been frail since birth, a congenital weakness. We've seen every specialist in the world to no avail. The amulet had no effect on her. I was wondering if you might have any other remedies? I looked helplessly at Alara. She was elegantly cutting a piece of steak. Hearing the old man's plea, she looked up. Let me see her. Overjoyed, Mr. Sterling immediately led the way. His granddaughter, Claire Sterling, was in her early 20s and resting in a suite on the top floor. When we entered, she was propped up in bed reading, her face as pale as paper. She was exquisitely beautiful in a fragile, porcelain doll way. Grandpa, she said softly, I told you not to trouble your guests. Claire, just let Miss Alara take a look, Mr. Sterling urged. She's Mr. Miller's friend, another master. Alara walked to the bedside, took one look at the young woman, and said, a congenital lack of spiritual energy. A fragmented soul. Mortal medicine would indeed be useless. Mr. Sterling's face fell. Then, I can heal her, Alara said, but it will expend some of my power. It is not worth the effort. Alara, I whispered, could you please help? She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable. You are asking me to save her. Think of it as good karma. Alara was silent for a long moment. Finally, she reached out and touched Claire's forehead. A soft light glowed for an instant. Claire gasped, and the color returned to her cheeks with astonishing speed. It is done, Alara said, withdrawing her hand. For the next 3 years, she will be as healthy as any normal person. Mr. Sterling was so overcome with emotion, he started to cry and tried to kneel. Alara flicked her sleeve, and an unseen force held him up. "Do not thank me," she said. "Thank him." She pointed at me. I had somehow become a savior. Mr. Sterling declared on the spot that his family owed me a debt that could never be repaid, and that I should never hesitate to ask for anything. On the way back to the hotel, I asked Alara, "Why did you say I was the one who saved her?" "Because I do not wish to become entangled in mortal affairs," she said, looking out the window. "But you, Leo, are already entangled." I didn't fully understand, but I had a strange feeling. This celestial being, in her own awkward way, seemed to be protecting me. After the gala, I became an overnight sensation in DC high society. The legend of Leo Miller, the miracle healer, spread like wildfire. I was hounded by people trying to get an appointment. Annoyed and overwhelmed, I booked an early flight back to Denver. Alara seemed pleased. Mortal nobility is just as I remembered, utterly unimpressive. The emperors of old were more imposing. Emperors of old? You've met them. I once met the Roman emperors, she said casually. They begged for the secret to eternal life. I declined. I nearly fell out of my chair. Chapter 5. Past and present. The days rolled on, and my cohabitation with Alara settled into a routine. She learned to cook. Though she nearly blew up the kitchen at first, she could now make a few decent dishes. She learned to ride the light rail, shop on Amazon, and even use emojis in her texts. Her contact photo was a lotus flower, her name was just Alara, and her social media was a blank slate. But every day, without fail, she would text me, "What are we eating tonight?" I realized this celestial being was becoming more and more human. She would frown when the DoorDash driver was late, scoff at the cheesy plot twists in TV shows, and even crack a small smile when Winston rubbed against her hand. The gold in her eyes would shimmer when she got emotional, but she learned to hide it with colored contact lenses. "Alara," I asked one day, unable to hold back, "are you ever going back to the celestial realm?" She was watering the new succulents on my balcony. Her hand paused. "When the year is over, I must return. And the debt? 1.75 billion, she said. "You will never be able to repay it in this lifetime." I gave a bitter smile. "What about the next lifetime?" "In the next lifetime, I will come to collect again." She said it so casually, but a sharp pain lanced through my chest. Next lifetime? Would she remember me? Would I remember her? "Alara," I said, using her name directly for the first time. What if I don't want you to go?" She turned, a flash of gold in her dark brown contacts. "What did you say?" I said, mustering my courage, "a year is too short. I want to spend more time with you." The silence in the room stretched out. Alara put down the watering can and walked toward me. She was half a head shorter than me, but her presence was so powerful I could barely meet her gaze. "Leo," she said, "do you know how stories of love between celestials and mortals end?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "The Little Mermaid?" "And countless others," she whispered. "For thousands of years, these tales have never had a happy ending. The cosmic laws are absolute. Celestials and mortals are worlds apart. Those who dare to love are punished by heavenly fire." "But you're not some minor sea spirit," I argued. "Are you less powerful than the ones who make the rules?" Alara smiled. It was the first time I had ever seen her truly smile. Not a smirk or a cold laugh, but a genuine, gentle smile. "Of course I am not as powerful as the cosmic arbiters," she said. "But more importantly, I do not wish to see your soul annihilated." "Annihilated? A mortal who falls in love with a celestial," she said, turning away, "will have their life force drained at best. At worst, their soul is scattered, erased from the cycle of rebirth for all eternity." "Why do you think I've been so cold to you?" I was stunned. "I came to the mortal realm to collect a debt." "It is true," she said. "But I also wanted to see what you had become after 3 lifetimes. I expected you to be greedy, foolish, vulgar, but you are not." She looked at me, a softness in her eyes I had never seen before. "You are kind and clumsy and endearing. And that is why I cannot harm you," she said, taking a step back. "When the year is up, I will erase your memories of me. You will return to your normal life." "No." I grabbed her hand. "I won't let you." Alara didn't pull away. She just looked at me sadly. "It is not your choice." That night, I couldn't sleep. Winston curled up on my chest, his purring a small comfort. What do I do, Winston? I whispered, stroking his fur. Meow. You think I should just give up? Meow. But I can't. Winston licked my hand as if to say he understood. The next day, I went to work with dark circles under my eyes, only to find the office buzzing with a strange energy. My co-workers were giving me weird looks, a mix of envy, jealousy, and fear. Leo, my man, a colleague sidled up to me. You've been holding out on us. When did you land a sugar mama? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, he said, pointing out the window. That Rolls-Royce has been parked out front all morning. The driver said he's here for Mr. Miller. The whole office is talking. I rushed to the window. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked at the curb. Its license plate a series of repeating eights. This wasn't one of the Sterling's cars. I went downstairs. A chauffeur opened the door for me. Mr. Miller, my employer requests your presence. And your employer is? You will find out when we arrive. The drive took 2 hours, leading us to a massive, secluded estate in the foothills of the mountains. The grounds were vast, with traditional pavilions and manicure gardens that looked like they belonged in another century. I was led to a study where a middle-aged man was sitting. He was dressed in a silk smoking jacket, his demeanor calm and scholarly, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. Mr. Miller, a pleasure to finally meet you, he said with a smile. My name is Silas Vance. I nearly choked. Silas Vance? The legendary, reclusive founder of the Vance Corporation? He was practically a myth. Don't be nervous, he chuckled. I'm not as intimidating as the media makes me out to be. Although, I have been around for quite some time. He stood up, walked over to me, and suddenly pressed his hand against my chest. The spot where Alara's lotus mark was hidden burned with heat. Just as I thought, he said, pulling his hand away. The Pact mark of a celestial of the Azure Palace. Mr. Miller, do you have any idea what this means? What? It means your soul has been branded, Silas Vance said. Upon your death, you will not be reincarnated. You will ascend directly to the celestial realm to serve as an immortal attendant. The blood drained from my face. What? The celestial Alara didn't tell you? Silas raised an eyebrow. The moment you made the pact, your fate was sealed. If she returns to her realm, you must follow. If she were to perish, your soul would be extinguished along with hers. I stumbled backward. No, she said she would erase my memories, a kindness to spare you the worry, Silas said dismissively. A pact between a celestial and a mortal, once forged, cannot be broken. She likely wanted you to enjoy your last year in peace. A chill ran through me. So when Alara said, in life you belong to me, and in death you are my ghost, she wasn't being dramatic. She was being literal. What? I mumbled. Why would she do that? Because she is a celestial, Silas said. Celestials require attendants and servants. Is not the eternal life mortals dream of a worthy prize? I don't want it, I yelled. I don't want to be some immortal servant. I just want to be a normal person. Silas watched me, his expression unreadable. After a long silence, he sighed. Just like your past self. I froze. What? Liam Blackwood, he said. That is what he said, too. He waved his hand, and an image shimmered into existence in the air. In a timeless courtyard, the young general's son, Liam Blackwood, was kneeling before Alara. Celestial, Liam said, his voice firm, I would rather die on the battlefield than live as your attendant. I beg you, release me from this pact. Alara's back was to him, her figure radiating sorrow. The pact is sealed. It cannot be undone. Do as you will. The image faded. Liam rose, walked toward the battlefield, and never returned. He died in battle, Silas said. Not for his kingdom, but to escape the pact. He chose death over a loss of freedom. I was trembling. So that was the choice my past self had made. The celestial Alara went into seclusion for 300 years, Silas continued. Not to cultivate her power, but to grieve. She thought Liam was a coward, afraid to live. Only later did she understand that he was defiant, unwilling to bend a knee. Her return to the mortal realm, Silas said, his eyes boring into me, was not to collect a debt, but to offer a second chance. A chance for you to choose differently. And yet this time, you still made the pact. I sank into a chair, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. Is there a way to break it? I asked. There is, Silas said, but the price is steep. Last time, she used 3 centuries of her power to negate the fallout. This time, the price would be far greater. What price? A life for a life. If you were to die, the Pact's obligation would transfer to her. She would suffer the soul scattering in your place. You would be reborn, and she would be erased from existence. I fell silent. Chapter 6. The choice. It was late when I got back to my apartment. Alara was on the couch, watching some historical drama on TV. She was so engrossed she didn't even hear me come in. Alara, I said. She turned, and her brow furrowed when she saw my pale face. What happened to you? I met Silas Vance today. Her expression immediately hardened. He told you everything, I said, walking over to her. About the Pact, about my past life, and about how to break it. Alara stood up, the gold in her eyes flaring so brightly her contacts were useless. You want to break the Pact? I want to know why you lied to me, I said, looking straight at her. You said you'd erase my memories. But the truth is, you were planning to take me with you to be your immortal servant. That's not true, she snapped, her composure breaking for the first time. I never intended for you to be a servant. Then the Pact can be transferred, she said, her voice dropping. I can transfer the consequence to myself, setting you free. You still here. What does that mean? A life for a life, Alara whispered. But not your life, Leo. Mine. I would have to disperse my celestial power. The Pact would dissolve, and you would return to your normal life. No. I grab her hands. I would never let you do that. Then would you rather be an immortal attendant? She shot back. To serve me for eternity, without freedom, without a will of your own? I couldn't answer. Leo, Alara's voice softened. I have lived for thousands of years. I have seen countless mortals. They are greedy, foolish, and short-lived. But some of them are like you. They would rather die than lose their freedom. She raised a hand and gently touched my cheek. I admire that about you. That's why I couldn't force you. In your last life, I didn't understand. This time, I wanted to give you the choice. What choice? To live as an immortal attendant, or to let me die? I squeezed her hand tightly. I choose option 3. There is no option 3. Yes, there is, I said. You stay here in the mortal world. I'll be your guide. Not for 1 year, but for a lifetime. We don't go back to the celestial realm. We live here as a normal couple. Alara was stunned. The cosmic laws forbid it, she said. If a celestial lingers in the mortal realm, I will be struck by heavenly fire. Then we'll face it together, I said. You didn't understand me in my past life. Don't you understand me now? I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of losing you. In Alara's eyes, golden light and unshed tears mingled. For 1,000 years, she had been a being of immense power. For the first time, a mortal was speaking to her like this. Her voice trembled. Do you know what you're saying? I know exactly what I'm saying. I insisted. I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you. Not because you're beautiful or because you're a celestial being, but because you're Alara. The Alara who secretly watches cooking shows, who will wait in line for 2 hours for good Hotpot, who cries at sad movies. I did not cry. You did. I laughed. Last week, when we watched Titanic, you thought I didn't see you wipe your eyes. A blush crept up Alara's cheeks, a sight I thought was impossible for Celestial. Mortal, she said, flustered. You are being insolent. I've always been insolent, I said, leaning closer. So punish me. She looked at me for a long time, and then a smile bloomed on her face. It was like watching ice melt in the spring sun. Very well, she said. I will punish you. I sentence you to an eternity by my side. I accept my sentence. We embraced, and at that moment, a clap of thunder shook the entire building. The retribution had arrived. Chapter 7. Heavenly fire. The first bolt of celestial lightning struck when I was in the kitchen making ramen. Alara appeared beside me in a flash, throwing out a hand. A golden shield enveloped the apartment. The thunder was deafening, but inside, we were completely safe. They have found me, she said, her eyes on the ceiling. The powers of the celestial realm. Boo! The lords of justice, Alara said. For lingering in a mortal realm and consorting with a mortal, I have broken the highest law. A second and third bolt struck, and Alara's face grew pale. She was using her own power to fight back, but the assault was relentless. She couldn't hold out forever. Alara, I said, grabbing her arm. What do we do? There are 2 options, she said, her breathing heavy. First, I can return to the celestial realm now and accept my punishment. You'll be safe. Or what? We can perform the ritual of union, she said, a faint blush on her cheeks. If we are bound as husband and wife, the heavenly fire, though fierce, cannot harm a union protected by the matron of creation. Not even the highest arbiters can defy her ancient decree. Istirahat. Get married? Right now. A vow before the heavens and the earth is all that is required, she said. Are you willing? Yes. Of course I'm willing. Alara took a deep breath, her hands forming a complex seal. A golden light burst from her, transforming into a shower of lotus blossoms that filled the room. She took my hand. Let the heavens be our witness, and the sun and moon our testament, she said, her voice ringing with power. I, Alara, wish to be united with Leo Miller, in this life and all to come, never to be parted. But if I take this vow, I will be stripped of my immortality and become immortal. My celestial ties will be severed forever. Knowing this, do you still wish to proceed? I was speechless. Become immortal? Yes, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I will lose my eternal life. I will grow old. I will die just like you. Are you willing to marry a celestial who is doomed to die? I laughed, tears streaming down my own face. There's nothing I want more. Then I, Leo Miller, wish to be united with Alara, in this life and all to come, never to be parted. The golden light exploded, shooting a column of pure energy through the roof and into the stormy sky. The celestial lightning struck the column and was deflected. From the clouds above, there came a sound like a deep sigh, and then the storm dissipated. Alara collapsed into my arms, pale but smiling. It is done. I am mortal now. I held her tight. Welcome to Earth, my wife. Chapter 8. The mortal coil after the storm, Alara became fully human. She got hungry, tired, and sick. She caught colds. She even got a period, a fact that took her 3 months to fully come to terms with. I am no different from a mortal now, she said, looking at her reflection with a hint of melancholy. I will age, and my life is now finite. I suppose I might live to be 200. My power is gone, but my foundation remains strong. And 200 years isn't enough for you. I laughed. I'll be lucky to make it to 80. Then I shall be a widow, she frowned. An unbecoming title. Then let's just grow old together, I said. I'll be with you. We had a small wedding, with only Agents Carter and Shaw and Mr. Sterling in attendance. Silas Vance sent an extravagant gift and a note saying he was off to find true immortality. Married life was peaceful and happy. Alara opened a small restaurant she called the Azure Garden. Her cooking was so unbelievably good that it became a viral sensation overnight. I quit my tech job to help her manage it. I was the host, the busboy, the dishwasher, and the bookkeeper. Ma'am, why is this Kung Pao chicken so amazing? A customer once asked. An old family recipe, Alara would say coolly. My husband taught me. I would be hiding in the back, smiling to myself. There was no family recipe. She just unconsciously infused the food with the last vestiges of her celestial aura, elevating the ingredients to a whole new level. After we closed up each night, we would go for walks. Alara loved the city at night, the neon lights, the rush of traffic. It was so much more alive than the cold, silent halls of the celestial realm. Leo, she said one day, completely out of the blue. I am pregnant. The bubble tea I was holding slipped from my hand and splattered on the sidewalk. You what? A union between a celestial and a mortal should not produce offspring, she said, her hand resting on her stomach, a gentle smile on her face. But it seems the celestial power I gave up has transformed into a new kind of life force. This child is a happy accident. I was so overjoyed I couldn't speak. I dropped to my knees and bowed my head to the ground, only to have her kick me playfully. Get up. You're embarrassing me. On the day our child was born, the DUA had to cordon off the hospital. A 9-colored aurora appeared in the sky directly above the maternity ward, and every flower in the city bloomed overnight. It was a girl. We named her Lyra. Lyra inherited Alara's golden eyes, which would shift color with her mood. By the age of 3, she could make her toys float. By 5, she had figured out how to teleport. mostly from the living room to the kitchen to steal cookies. I can't handle her, I said one day, completely exhausted. She's out of control. She takes after you, Elara said, calmly sipping her tea. I was a very well-behaved child. You had a childhood? Weren't you born from a divine lotus or something? Be quiet. Chapter 9. 100 years later, 60 years passed in the blink of an eye. I was an old man with a full head of white hair, while Elara still looked as she had at 50. A final gift, she said, from her celestial essence, so she could stay with me to the end. Elara, I whispered from my bed, my breath shallow. This life, it was worth it. She held my hand, tears streaming down her face. I will not let you die. Don't be silly, I chuckled weakly. Every mortal has their time. Meeting you was the greatest luck of my life. What about the next life? She asked, her voice thick with sorrow. The next life, I said, using all my strength to lift my hand and wipe away her tears. I'll find you again. You'll come to collect your debt, I'll sign the pact, and we'll do it all over again. All right, she sobbed. I will wait for you, but I will not let you sign another pact. That thing, it's too cruel. Then how will you find me? With this, she said, pulling a jade pendant from her neck. It was warm and smooth, and carved with two small words, Elara and Leo. I nurtured this with the last of my celestial energy. It is imbued with our bond. In your next life, you will carry this, and I will know you in an instant. I smiled and slowly closed my eyes. In my final moments, I felt my soul drift upward, weightless, enveloped in a warm, loving energy. Elara's voice echoed around me. Go now, my husband. I will keep our restaurant open. I will watch over our daughter. I will wait until I see you again. 20 years later, the Azure Garden was still open. The owner was an elegant, ageless woman who always wore a simple white linen dress, her golden eyes hidden behind contact lenses. Her daughter, Lyra, had taken over the business, serving as both owner and head chef, while occasionally freelancing for the DUA. Her grandchildren ran around the restaurant, calling her Grandma. Grandma, her youngest granddaughter asked, why do you always wear that old jade pendant? Elara looked down at the pendant resting against her chest, its surface worn smooth over the decades. Elara and Leo. Because, she smiled, it was a gift from someone who owes me a great debt. A debt? She said, gazing out the window. He owes me a Hotpot dinner. He's been a few decades late. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. A young man walked by, dressed in a simple white t-shirt, an old, familiar-looking jade pendant hanging from a cord around his neck. He stopped, looking up at the restaurant sign. His expression shifted from confusion to recognition to pure, unadulterated joy. He pushed open the door, and the small bell above it chimed. Welcome, Elara said, standing up, her golden eyes shining in the evening light. Table for how many? The young man looked at her and smiled. Just one, but I have a story I'd like to tell the owner. What kind of story? It's about a mortal, he said, his eyes locking with hers, and a celestial, and a hot-pot dinner that's been owed for a very, very long time. Tears welled in Elara's eyes, but her smile was as bright as the stars. In that case, she said, I'm listening. The end.